Welcome to In Your Neighborhood. I am your host, Councilmember Ray Malnar from the Saguaro District. Recently, the City Council had a discussion and presentation on our landfill and the recycle program in the City of Glendale. It was very enlightening, and I would like to share some of those findings that we discussed with the public. Today, we're going to talk about our landfill, about the future of our landfill, and then we're going to get into an in-depth discussion about our recycling program in the City of Glendale. So enjoy the show. To start off our program today, we're going to be speaking with Bill Stout, who is the operation manager for the Glendale Landfill. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us about what we're seeing here in the background?
Well, this is our north cell that was sited or permitted years ago when they originally, in 1973, when they initiated this landfill. It's about 120 acres, and we've initiated the initial excavation of this cell.
So this is basically the future landfill for Glendale?
Yes.
Okay. And how much longer do we have until our existing landfill is to capacity?
We're slated to last till about 2023.
2023. So this cell will then be prepared. Tell us what needs to happen here in order to prepare this land cell.
Well, the initial excavation was about 800,000 yards. We have another million or so to go to bring it down to grade and then line the cell with a environmentally sound liner to protect the groundwater.
Right. Okay. So tell us about this liner. What is it you're going to be putting in, and why did we put that in?
To protect groundwater primarily.
Okay. So we're going to be lining this entire area with a big piece of plastic, basically?
Yeah, the first phase is approximately 25 acres.
Okay.
And then that'll be years worth of fill, and then they'll excavate the next phase. Anticipating about 8 phases in this cell.
Okay. How long do you think this phase will last?
Oh, well over, probably I'm looking at 10 years.
10 years, okay. So what I want to do now is just talk a little bit about the volume of refuse that comes into the landfill on a daily basis.
Well, we're getting an average of 1,200 tons a day.
1,200 tons?
Total.
Okay.
From Glendale entities and trucks and residents, it's about 400 plus tons, 450 tons a day.
From Glendale?
Yeah,
and the balance is from other facilities or other cities?
Entities, other commercial
landscaper. And I think it's important for the citizens to realize that other cities contributing to our landfill are actually keeping our prices, our rates down.
Yes.
How does that work?
Through IGAs, intergovernmental agreements with
Okay.
other cities and municipalities.
Okay, and we price it in a fashion that we recover our cost and maybe have a little bit of extra profit in there, or how does that work?
I believe so. There are cell construction costs that we have to account for.
Anything else you can tell us about the landfill?
Well, residents we get about 13,000 tons a year from residents.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, over 40 tons a day. Over half of that is for the free ton.
Okay.
So they do take advantage of that.
Excellent.
That's a good service to them.
There's been some discussion here recently about the possibility of creating a mulch recycling down the road and using some of the bulk pickup trash as a bulk recycling and turning some of that into mulch, all the greenery.
Yes.
How would that work?
Actually, that would actually contribute to our alternative daily cover, which is an alternative to using soil.
Okay.
Which will balance our cell when we complete this entire cell in about 50, 60 years. So that helps with minimizing how much soil we haul.
Oh, excellent. Is that going to cost much to install that type of a system?
There is maintenance involved to a grinding operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something that down the road, once we get this new cell open, we can kind of take a look at see if we can get that to take place.
Yeah, we use a synthetic polyethylene tarp right now.
Right.
Which is a great benefit.
Excellent.
Saving a lot of airspace.
Well, Bill, thanks a lot for being with us here today. I appreciate it very much. And we're going to now be going down and talking to the folks down at the Recycle and learning a little bit more about recycling plastics, glass, and paper. We're now here with Ernie Ruiz, one of the supervisors here at the MuRF recycling facility. Welcome to the show, Ernie.
Thank you.
Today we have in front of us a lot of different recyclables, or not recyclables, as we will talk about. What I want to do today is let the public know what the different recyclables are that we accept and that are good for our program, and then we'll talk about some of the items that come in recycle that really are not so good and the reason why they're not good. So let's start by telling us about some of these recycles here that you have and how they come through the system and how they operate.
Okay, so over here, what we have is a mixture of all the great commodities that we first started with when we opened up the MuRF. We've got your number ones, your number twos, plastics. We got some chipboard, cardboard here. We got newspaper. We've got aluminum, tin cans, number one PET bottles, like your Coke and your water bottles. We've got some shredded paper here, and I know this gets a little confusing for a lot of residents, but we do want the shredded paper captured in a bag.
Oh, we do want it in a bag like this?
In only shredded paper. So I
only
wanted to make,
that's important.
Yeah, that's important.
Because later we're going to talk about that we don't want this plastic otherwise.
Yes, correct. So the plastic bags like this or your grocery bags, this is what we get a lot of, and we want to stay away from those.
Do you want to, if they have an empty bag like this, do you want that to come through recycle, or only when it's got confetti in it?
Only when we have shredded paper is when we want to accept the plastic bags, and we want the shredded paper to come in clear plastic bags. So that gives us an opportunity when it's running up the line for the staff up there to pull that out, and we can recycle that. So if it comes across in a colored bag and we can't see it, then it's going to go into the trash. So it's very important that we talk to our residents about keep it in a clear plastic bag, so when we do get shredded paper, we're able to capture it.
This plastic, is it recyclable?
Not in our program.
So this plastic is not recyclable, so your system has to take that out and then put that into the paper recycle, and this will go into the landfill.
Yes, manually, we will do that manually, yeah.
Any of these other items that we need to talk about?
You know, we want to focus, again, we're going back to the basics. Our program has been struggling a lot because of the economy, the markets have changed a lot. So what we're trying to do now is trying to focus and go back to the basics of recycling. When you get over here, you get into your 3 through 7s, and these commodities are no longer marketable. So
let's talk about those in just a minute. I want to talk about tin cans.
Okay.
My wife insists that I rinse out all the tin cans before we put them in recycle. How critical is that?
In this facility, we do have a lot of flies and a lot of gnats. So the cleaner the material is, it helps keep the facility cleaner. The folks, the end users, would prefer not to have a lot of residue in the cans. So a light wash is preferred. It's not mandatory, but it is preferred.
So rinse out the cans before you put them in. What about some of these other plastics? Is there anything else you can tell us about the do's and don'ts of the plastics?
Well, when again we come back to the do's and don'ts, we're trying to focus and go back to the basics. We want to focus on the 1s and 2s. A lot of people, a lot of myths have, you know, they take off the caps, take off the lids. That's fine. The way they come in like that is fine. Our system can handle them with the lids. If they want to take off the lids, that's fine, but leaving them on is fine as well.
Cardboard, tell us about cardboard. Are we basically taking all types of cardboard?
Yes, yeah, we take all types of cardboard. Another myth, another challenge that a lot of folks have is recycling the pizza cartons, the pizza boxes. As long as your pizza carton and the box is not heavily contaminated with cheese and grease, that can go in your recycling bin. It's okay. But if it's heavily contaminated or if it has pizza in it, we don't want it. Don't put it in your bin. Right. But if it's clean cardboard, like anything else, if it comes out clean, we'll take it.
So what happens when you get contaminated cardboard or other contaminated items that really you can't recycle? What does that cost us, and what goes on there?
Well, there is a cost. It increases the operating cost of this facility. The more time we have to spend pulling contaminants off the line ends up more time that we're not focusing on pulling the good stuff off. So, and then eventually that material ends up having to go back into the landfill. And the whole goal is to keep it either in the garbage can or in your recycling bin. Gotcha. So if you got garbage, put it in the garbage. We're trying to focus too on telling our residents, don't get creative. We're giving you the basics. We're telling you what we need.
So these are, folks, take a look at this. This is what the landfill wants you to put into your recycle bins. What you see here, these kind of things. Let's now talk about some of the things that get put into recycle, but really end up in the landfill because they are not recyclable under our current system.
Correct. So right now, the 3 through 7s that you're seeing here, we're phasing them out. They were being accepted before, but as of the last couple of years, we have not been able to market that material. So what's happening is we're capturing it, we're having to bale it, we're having to handle it, which costs us money, and there's no market for it, so we can't
Nobody
sell it.
will even pick it up. Nobody, you can't even give it away.
Can't even give it away. So what's happening is we're having to stockpile it, and that obviously is costing us money. So we want to we're working on phasing that material out.
So do you end up then putting those bales in the landfill?
No, not as of yet. We're trying to find some other alternatives. We're waiting patiently for some new companies to come into the market to try to see if they can develop some type of new technology that can take that material. They're almost there. So for now, we're going to phase the 327s out. If later we need to phase them back in, we'll do that. But it's a cost right now that we can't help to
and this is an issue that we really need to, as a community, we need to discuss what we want to do with these particular plastics. Right now, there's no market for them. They come into our recycling system,
Correct.
but there's no market for it, and so we can't do anything with it. It's costing us a lot of money to recycle things that we can't recycle.
That's correct.
Now, there's a cost to it, and perhaps if we can find a market, if there's somebody that will just take it off our hands, maybe we have to pay somebody to take it off our hands, but that's a cost to the community, and the residents need to understand that these particular recyclables, there's a cost to recycling, and we need to decide which way we want to go. Do we want to continue to recycle these at a cost that could raise rates, or do we want to put them in the landfill? This is a topic that needs to be discussed in the community.
You know, I can't agree with you more. From the aspect of our job here is to find the best way to handle the waste stream for the city of Glendale. We've identified some areas that we could, have some savings in. But of course, again, we're servicing the community. We want to be there for the community and do what they're asking us. And if they want to recycle certain items, and council and mayor and council decide that that's the direction we're going to go, we're going to do all the research that we need to do and come back with a good suggestion on how to make that happen.
Great. I want to talk briefly about this controversy that is going on right now with this type of plastic versus this type of plastic. You look at that, the consumer looks at that and goes, oh, either one of those are good to put in recycle, but this is rated as a
number two,
and that's good for recycle.
Correct.
And this one is rated as, it says on here it has a 5, but it also has a 7.
Correct.
So I'm not sure which one it really is, but either way, it's in that group of recyclables that are not acceptable.
Correct.
So we need to educate the public also to be looking at the bottom of their containers to make sure that they understand the difference between the recyclables.
Yep, that's correct.
Now let's talk about the no-nos.
Okay, so some of the no-nos, we get a lot of what they call PVC piping.
Right.
This is not recyclable. A lot of people get creative. They want to say, okay, this is plastic, so it must be recyclable. It's not. We get styrofoam. We get different types of styrofoam cups.
Let's talk about this.
Okay.
A lot of people believe that's a good recyclable. What does that cause in the system? What problems does it cause?
For MuRF recycling facility operators, it's a huge problem. Most facilities have what they call star screens. Those star screens, this material will run up into the screens and it will bind up into the screens, and it takes hours upon hours of maintenance to clear this stuff from the screens. So we definitely don't want to see any plastic bags just coming up solo like this. I know we talked about plastic bags with shredded paper, but that's a whole different type of process that we're doing there. So when you have plastic bags, just either reuse them somewhere in the house and end up making their way into the trash, but make sure that these end up in the trash can, or recycling at a supermarket or somewhere that can take them.
Okay. Well, let's talk about glass. There's been a lot of requests from our citizens to start recycling glass. So, and I know that the Phoenix facility currently has some recycling of glass, but there's also some issues going on there.
Correct.
So can you talk to us about glass, the recycling process for glass, and why we can or cannot do it here in Glendale?
So glass has always been a challenge for all recycling facilities. Most facilities do it because the residents are asking for it strongly. When we first started up in 2000, we chose to keep glass out of the system for a number of reasons. One, it creates havoc on the system. Glass, what it ends up breaking down to is basically sand. So when you get sand into the motors, into the screens, it just puts a tremendous amount of wear on all that equipment. So not running glass through our facility, I believe, has helped us maintain this facility as long as we have. The more glass you put into the recycling trucks, the solid waste trucks that go around collecting it, that creates a lot of wear and tear on the beds and on the paddles and on the push blades. Everything that truck does inside that body ends up wearing out faster.
Gotcha.
So glass, of course, council has asked us to look for a way to try to recycle it and give us an opportunity here for our residents. So I'm looking at that now. We're looking at different alternatives. drop-off sites, maybe private collections.
So recently in a city council workshop, we talked about glass because the citizens in our community are asking us to recycle glass. So we asked the recycling facility to take a look at the option of having some drop points around the city that people could then take their glass to.
Correct. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we are looking at that. There are some possible alternatives. The challenge that we always have with recycling glass at drop-off sites is contamination in the bins. So we're going to try it again. We're going to see what we can do. We'll come up with a pilot options. Take a look at what type of material we end up getting in those containers. And again, we go back to the whole reason why we're having this conversation. Does it make good business sense?
Right.
Is it cost effective for the city to continue to do this type of collection if it's costing the city and the residents money? You know, we want to do everything in our power to keep the cost down for as long as possible. There's a huge impact on the landfill if we don't continue to try to keep our airspace, you know, for our Glendale residents as long as possible. So that's you know, just a piece of the puzzle when it comes to recycling glass. You know, the pros and cons. You know, everybody has a different idea about recycling glass, but there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons.
Right. Well, I think it all boils down to the cost.
Correct.
I mean, we could recycle glass, but we would have to increase our rates most likely for our sanitation over time because it's going to wear the equipment out more, from what you said earlier, and just the cost of actually recycling it, and sometimes there's not much of a market for
Correct.
many of these items. So this is an issue that the cities of Glendale really need to consider and let the city council know how you stand on recycling. Do you want to do 100% recycling, in which case it's going to cost quite a bit of money to do so? Or are we going to limit some of our items in our recycling so that we can actually break even or make a little bit of money on the recycling program? Okay, we're here now with the director of the operations here at the recycling facility, Michelle Wojtenko. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle.
Well, thanks for having me.
So what I want to do today is kind of talk about the economics of recycling. So can you kind of just give us an overview of the economics of the recycling program, where it's been, where it's at, and where you think it's going?
Sure. So when we started the program back, 1999, 2000, we were getting some money for products. If you remember back, newspaper was always one of the big ones. Your Sunday newspaper was much bigger than it is today. So a lot more paper in the beginning than there is now coming into it. So when we started recycling, we had a lot of paper, and there was a lot of nice local markets. So most of our newspaper went to a local plant up in Snowflake, up in northern Arizona. And over time, China wanted a lot of newspaper because it was easier for them to take newspaper and create future paper out of it. So they priced them out of the market, and that plant essentially closed mid-2000s, about 2006, 2007. There were other places that we could send our newsprint to, up in the Seattle area or Washington State, Oregon State. But through time, all those plants have closed because China and other foreign markets have been paying more money for it. Well, recently what they've discovered is that they can't take this used paper and create new paper out of it as cheaply as they can take and create new paper. So if you look at a newspaper, there's a lot of ink on it. And you can't take this ink and then create a new paper that people want to use out of this. It'll be a gray type paper. So there's a lot of bleach and other chemicals used. Well, here in the US, we want to protect our environment, and it's a good thing. And we want everybody else to, but it's those chemicals and that offtake with the recycling of used paper that's almost made it uneconomical today. So there are very few mills now left in the US. And what China discovered was that as people started throwing more into recycling, there was a lot of garbage coming across with it. And that's really why they've stopped accepting our material, is just all the other garbage that comes with it.
So China will not take our paper. Is that what you're saying?
China will not, they've tightened the regulations down so you can have 0.05% garbage within. So if they ask for paper, they ask for cardboard, it has to be perfectly clean.
I see.
And if you think about us throwing all our material into that barrel and then sorting it all out, there's going to be something. There's going to be something else in with it. Even if you think about the Coke bottle, right? If it's not perfectly dry when you throw it in your bin, a little bit of Coke in there, well, through the processing, it'll get onto the paper.
Contaminated.
And now it's contaminated.
I see. Okay, that's important for the residents to understand the critical nature of the recycling process. Okay, what else can you tell us about the economics?
Plastics became part of the program.
Yes.
We used to be able to sell our plastics, but again, over time, plastics have changed, right? It used to be a nice label on it, but right now, I can't peel this off. It's actually ink on the plastic, and that's changed the chemistry of the plastic. And so now, it's become a single-use plastic. And others will tell you that, well, they say they're recyclable. There's no market for these components. So what we've done is, when we make this, we now make it non-recyclable. And so we still want some of these, like this is still a good plastic, and what we're trying to do is find those markets that will take it and convert it back to its virgin materials and make it reusable.
Right.
But through time, we've done ourselves a disservice by allowing, when we manufacture something, not looking at its end use.
So it sounds like there needs to be a full circle with Congress and regulations on the creation of these plastics if we want to continue viable recycling program.
Absolutely. This is not a Glendale issue, and this is not an Arizona issue. This is a worldwide issue, but we need to start here, start now. So.
Yep, very good. Anything else you can tell us about the economics of recycling and the pros and cons of economically?
If you think back, your water bottles, right? They used to be much thicker than they are today, and now they're very thin. And that's great for the environment, but what it's done is it's changed the program in the sense that we need many, many more of these now to make it economically viable. Still a great product, we still get good money for it, continue to recycle these. It's just what we buy has changed over time, and the end markets haven't kept up with them.
I see. Can we talk about the dollar economics of recycling?
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us what it costs the city residents to recycle, or the money that we make off of recycles?
So, the good news is we still are able to sell a lot of our materials for some good money, right? So once,
and is that basically these materials?
It's basically these materials. We get money for the plastics, we get money for all the metal, and metal, let's think of aluminum and tin.
Right.
The cardboard. But the markets fluctuate over time, so the exact dollar amount depends on what month it's in, the amount of other material out in the market. So we are competitive. So we still get money for these products. We can't sell these products for any money. And this has never been a money maker. This has always been kind of a break-even type thing. And when you look at what it costs us and how it hurts our material, and also you look at the human factor of it. Our sorting plant, when we sort material out, there's a lot of human touching, and it's the liability and
of doing that
that we've kept out of it. So,
do you have any costs that you can share with us?
Sure. So, in the past, we were able to sell these materials for much more money than we're getting today. As we recycle more and more of these, and the markets just aren't there. China's gone away. We get less money. So, if we
we're still making a profit per se off of these recyclables?
We're still able to sell them for good money. So if you look at the entire program as a whole, so I take this, I throw it in my curbside container, it costs us to come along and pick that up. It costs us to bring it here to this plant and to process it, and then we sell it. So you have to look at that entire cost.
Okay, so my question is, if the person or the individual were to put this in the garbage bin versus in the recycle, we do make money off of those products, but it costs us to do the recycling.
Correct.
So my question is, what's the net effect of us recycling these type of products? Is there a net profit to the city, or are we paying money to actually recycle?
That's a great question, and there's many different ways we can answer it. So the simplest way to do it is look at it. If we have to go by with the truck and pick it up, garbage or recycle, right? So these materials here, we can sell them for money. It still costs us to process them. So if we can pull the trash out, we're not processing trash. We want to process pure recycling. There is still a cost to the program overall.
Right.
And so right now, citywide overall, it's costing us about $1 million a year, because that's what we're not recovering with the sale of the materials compared to the cost to process them and sell them. So there is still a cost to it, but we can look at it. We still have to pay to landfill those. So we have to look at it holistically. Recycling is still the right thing to do. We just need to make sure we're recycling for the right reasons and those materials that truly are recyclable.
Excellent. Very good. Any other items you want the public to understand about the cost of recycling?
The big thing is it costs us money to recycle the product. So if you're not sure, if you think that this may be recyclable, it might be, but not in our program. So we have to look at what's in our program, and we're going to attempt to do what's right for the residents. We're going to look at glass recycling. There are places you can recycle clothing, not in our program though. So don't throw that in your recycle bin for the city. But you can still recycle those in other ways. So if you've got furniture, you've got clothing that still got some use to it, look at those nonprofits and look at those ways you can recycle as well, just not in our program.
Not in our program. So basically it comes down to the residents understanding what is good for the recycling program and what really shouldn't be put in the recycling program.
Correct.
And if they do that, we're going to reduce our recycling costs, which will then make that more of a return on investment, so to say.
Correct. So the better we get at teaching people and educating, working together on what we can sell, the better it is for the residents overall.
Okay. So I want to just let the residents know, again, these are the types of items you want to be putting in your recycle bin. Everything that is here, the number 2 plastics, the tin, the cardboard, the paper, and if you do the shredded, make sure it's in a clear bag. Otherwise, it might end up costing us more to send it to the landfill. So with that, thanks for being here. I appreciate all your input.
Thanks for allowing me to be here.
You bet. We're now here in the Marshall Ranch neighborhood to talk about the Blue Barrel Pilot Program. With me today is Gavin Dupuy, who is the coordinator for the pilot program here in Glendale. So Gavin, tell us a little bit about the program, how it got started, when it got started, and a little bit of the statistics about what's going on with it.
Absolutely. So what we did within this neighborhood is we replaced the previous recycled containers for blue ones. Now this was supposed to promote recycling and reduce contamination. So what we got from this is we implanted these about 8 months ago. We did a pre-audit on the previous recycled containers. What we got was around 23% contamination and 70% participation. Our industry standard is around 15% for contamination, so this was over. This isn't good for recycling. Now we let the containers sit with constant education. We kept going through, educating residents of what's allowed in these containers and what's not allowed in these containers. We did another audit and we got it down to around 12%. We let it sit, we went hands off, we didn't do any educational material or anything. So after our post-audit, we got down the contamination to 8%.
Excellent. So it went from 23% clear down to 8%
Correct.
in contamination.
Correct.
Now earlier we talked about in our program the critical nature of the contamination within our recycling program.
Absolutely.
That it adds a lot of cost and effort to get those recyclables clean so that we can put them back on the market for sale in the recycle industry.
Right, correct.
Excellent. Tell us about participation. What's happened there?
So the participation, we started out at around 70%, which is pretty high, but we got it by the end to be 75%.
So it's actually increased.
So it's increased, so we've gotten more materials to go to our MuRF, and they're cleaner.
Awesome. What I also want to do is take a look at the top of this recycle bin. This is actually imprinted into the bin so that it doesn't come off. I know in the prior bins, the recycle bins we had before, we had stickers on there, and over a period of time I noticed mine would fall off. Whereas this is imprinted, so now it's an education right on the top of the bin that helps the residents understand what is acceptable as recyclable and what isn't. So that's excellent. We're now going to talk to some neighbors here in the Marshall Ranch neighborhood. Today we have with us Wally, Janet, and Kathy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
And I want to recognize Wally and Janet. They are the block watch captains for this street, and I really believe the block watch program is really valuable. So thanks for participating in that. What I want to do is kind of talk about the impact that the Blue Barrels have had on your neighborhood. You know, we just spoke with Gavin, who told us about the improvement in the recycle. So I wanted to get your input on how you perceive this. So Wally, why don't you tell us what you've seen using these barrels versus what we had before?
Well, it's made it a lot simpler for us. Like when we've had a housekeeper here, I would have to check the trash can when I got home from work at night just to see if she picked out the right can, because there was such a minute difference between the two of them.
Excellent. Janet, anything to add?
Well, to be honest, I don't take out the garbage much. So when I do, it makes a big difference because the color is completely different from the other can.
Okay.
So I'm less likely to make a mistake.
Oh, excellent. And Kathy, what's your experience?
To be honest, I always wondered how the recycling trucks didn't get the color of the cans mixed up, because often they're here really, really early in the morning.
Right.
Fall and winter, it's dark. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, for the homeowners as well as for the city.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks for coming and letting us know that today. You know, the pilot program is just that. We've got it in 4 neighborhoods right now, and we're testing it to see how it improves the recycling contamination, the participation, those kind of things. And so far, very positive results. So if we do indeed go to a full citywide recycling program with the Blue Barrel, what we will be doing is over time recycle those out. We're not going to go out and spend, you know, a lot of money to replace everybody's barrels. Barrels break down when they get broken. We have them replaced. As we do that, we have to buy new barrels. So as we replace people's barrels, then we'll start recycling these in. Unless, of course, we can come up with a way that's basically costs us nothing additional to change it all out. And we're hoping that we can do that. That's something will come along. But again, just thanks for being here. I think the Blue Barrel program pilot is working as we expected it to. So we're looking for some good results at our recycling plant in the future. I want to thank all my guests who joined me here on the show today. And thank you for watching. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. And I'll see you next time in your neighborhood.